Well, the 2022-2023 SJHL season has officially come to a close. The Battlefords North Stars are the first ever Canterra Seeds Cup champions. They're now getting ready for the Centennial Cup, which will begin May 11th. But before we get there, we should put a bow on this 2022-2023 SJHL season, and there's no better person to put a bow on the season with than the Commissioner of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, Mr. Kyle McIntyre. Kyle, thanks so much for taking the time to do this today. We really appreciate it. How's it going?
Well, it's going just great, Jeremy. I think that we had a highly successful season, and we had a great set of playoffs, and to nobody's surprise, our eventual champion of the Canterra Seeds Cup, our inaugural champions, are the North Battleford North Stars. So,
for sure. I just want to ask you, to build off that. Let's before we get into the chronological order of everything for this year, let's talk about the final. Obviously, it just wrapped up over the weekend, and I know it was a 4-0 sweep for the Battlefords North Stars. But what was your thoughts on the matchup in the final?
Well, I got to be careful how I say this, Jeremy, but truly it was the two best teams in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League met in the final. Of course, Flin Flon was not 100% healthy. Even if they had been 100% healthy, I'm not sure they would have derailed the North Battleford momentum train. North Battleford just seemed to get better and better and better as the playoffs went on, and that was very evident in games 3 and 4 as they seemed to make everything was tape to tape, everything was quick, everything was transitioning so quickly, and of course in both rinks. I mean, in the Battlefords we had probably average attendance of about 2,300 people the first weekend of the finals, and then in Flin Flon on Friday, Saturday we probably had an average of about 1,700. So we had fantastic crowds, very passionate fan bases. The hockey was outstanding, and I mean the score wasn't always indicative of the play or the disparity between the teams, but North Battleford, even when you thought they were down and out, even when you thought they weren't going to come back, even when Flin Flon got the first goal in Game 4, and you thought that, this might be it. Battleford was extremely resilient, and their talent it rose to the top. Cream rises to the top.
And they found different ways to win all season long. So, obviously, you took over the SJHL Commissioner's job last year. This was your first full season on the job. Overall, when you look back on your first year, what stood out?
Well, how quickly time goes by. Time marches on when you get to be a certain age. So certainly it went by rapidly. Probably for me, the biggest thing that I found this year was the speed and skill was even better than I imagined it would be. The competitive balance amongst the teams in the league was stronger than I thought it would be. You guys talked about it. Every time you had a broadcast, you and Rory and Jamie talked about parity in the league, and truly there was a whole bunch of parity in the league, and any team could win on any given night, right? And so really that really impressed me. Certainly, Jeremy, yourself, you did an absolutely outstanding job as the face and the voice of the SJHL, and IKS Media, and producer Clark and Jordan and Paul were excellent teammates. And really, when I sat down last year at this time with Paul Druin from IKS, I had some plans, I had some goals, I had some ideas, and certainly you and the folks from IKS really brought those to fruition. The other thing that really struck me is the passion of the fan bases and the strength of the volunteers. The SJHL would not exist without quality fans and quality volunteers, quality coaches. I mean, there is not one coach in the league that I didn't look forward to speaking with and visiting with and talking with. And certainly the other thing, that, as I was telling you the other day, the quality of broadcasters throughout the league. Lots of passion. Everyone's unique. I could not pick my MVP of broadcasters, and I certainly won't answer if you ask me that.
I'm not going to.
But I went to a lot of rinks. I watched a lot of hockey TV. The product was excellent, and as we'll get into in this interview, some of the metrics that we set last year at this time, we're ticking them off, and we're on the right track. We're not there, Jeremy. There's much more to do in my view, but we're on the right track anyways.
I think so, for sure. Let's talk about some of those partnerships that the league has come to terms with other organizations. I mean, let's start right at the top with the big one, Canterra Seeds. I mean, we've talked about it with the people from Canterra Seeds. We talked about it on the SJHL Finals broadcast. We talked to them at the SJHL NJHL Showcase. Obviously, we've seen the brand new Canterra Seeds Cup. It's gorgeous. I mean, From an SJHL perspective, maybe just walk me through how that partnership kind of came about and what you've made of it so far.
Well, how it happened was that when I was struggling to try to understand how the league operated and how we financed things in the league and how I was going to engage all the existing sponsors, because really we didn't have the smoothest transition with our sponsorship and marketing.
Right.
And certainly also coming out of COVID, the 2 previous years, we knew that there had to be a bunch of relationships that had to be rebuilt.
Right.
And I had to establish myself, obviously, as the commissioner, and I had to introduce people to me and how I was going to do stuff and what the vision was for the league. And so certainly I spent a lot of time on the phone, on email, on conference calls, on Microsoft Teams, on Google Meet, reaching out to sponsors and meeting sponsors and tried to engage new sponsors. And certainly my first contact with Canterra Seeds was through Sucker Punch Media.
Okay.
So through Jody and Madison at Sucker Punch, and they reached out to me because Canterra was also looking for a new partner. And the thing about Canterra and the SJHL, which made such a nice marriage, was that we have common interests. We have the fans of rural Saskatchewan and all 12 of our communities, many of which are producers or farmers. Canterra was looking to make some inroads with an established sponsor, with an established partner in many of the communities that our SJHL is in. So it was kind of a win-win. But initially, as we kind of went back and forth and figured out what assets we had that they were interested in and how we were going to do things, and certainly a business partnership really evolved into a friendship, into a real sense of team, and certainly as people would have seen with David Hansen when he was on TV and some of the broadcasts, like just an absolute phenomenal fella. Renee McMillan from Canterra, absolutely phenomenal. Lori Keselowski that you interviewed a few times on SaskTel.
Kiowski.
Great lady as well.
Close.
I was stick handling through that one.
Yeah.
But all those folks were absolutely fantastic and wonderful.
100%.
And again, that Canterra Seeds Cup, Jeromy.
Unreal.
Absolutely beautiful. Great cup. Lots of excitement amongst our players and our communities when we toured that through during playoffs. So Canterra really, it's been a win-win. It's been a symbiotic relationship between Canterra and the SJHL. And again, I believe the best is yet to come.
Let's talk about another one of your partners. I think one thing that fans might not realize, and I was surprised too when you brought it up to me, was the fact that one of the biggest expenses in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League is involving the officials, their travel and everything, obviously with all of our different teams across the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And this year, a really big partnership to help with those costs was through Federated Co-op. Maybe just tell us a little bit about that partnership.
Yeah, and so they were absolutely outstanding. So between myself and our director of marketing and partnerships, Jacob Faith, we wanted to identify a sponsor that could help us with one of our largest expenditures, which is referee travel. And so the way that we set it up, we spend about $250,000 a year on our officials.
Wow.
And so that includes both game fees and travel. The challenge is we always try to use as many local officials as possible. But the officials that are kind of the age that they need to be to officiate in the SJHL and the 18U AAA League and the Western League is that most of those kids are school age. So a lot of them are attending university in Saskatoon and Regina, and although they might have been an official in Melfort or in Flin Flon or in La Ronge or in Prince Albert, they're going to school in either Saskatoon or Regina.
Right.
So most of our crews travel out of Saskatoon and Regina. So we were really looking for a Saskatchewan company that really could, that was supportive of the SJHL, that really could help mitigate some of those expenses with our officials. And Federated Co-op was a group that we approached, and they have been absolutely outstanding. And probably they probably did not want as much notoriety as we wanted to give them. And so that's something that I certainly want to do moving forward, because the partnership has been outstanding. So they've helped us with our fuel costs for the league. They have patches on the right shoulder of all our officials, and that was quite prominent as you went throughout the league. But really, they kind of wanted to downplay their involvement with us a little bit. And myself, although I'm not a marketing person, I really thought they missed an opportunity, and words cannot acknowledge how much we appreciated them being partners with the SJHL.
For sure. And we obviously appreciate all the partners in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And one of the other partner I wanted to quickly touch on too was the first partner, the new partner that got announced when I came aboard for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, and that's Phantom Vodka. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so that one actually came about on the golf course.
Nice.
And so Phantom Vodka has 5 Saskatchewan owners.
Right.
One of which I had a relationship through provincial volleyball with.
Okay.
And so he and I hashed out an idea about Phantom Vodka, because Phantom Vodka, it's a Prince Albert-based company. Partners are throughout the province. They wanted to get with the SJHL because, again, they recognize that our league covers 12 communities in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and they certainly wanted to make some inroads in those communities. So we talked about what that deal would look like. We talked about it needed to be a win-win. We needed something at the league level, but I also needed something at the team level. And of course, they came up with the SJHL bottle, and Drew and Corey and Steph and other partners were present at a lot of the game nights throughout the SJHL. And although I was not initially a vodka consumer, I have grown to love and appreciate Phantom Vodka. Like, it is so smooth. And
there you
again, they were great partners. We had the Phantom Vodka pucks at our SJHL showcase in September. And again, that's a partnership that probably exceeded expectations for both me as commissioner and for Phantom Vodka. So again, I look for bigger and better things from Phantom.
Oh, it's a win-win for everybody, it seems like, across the board. Now, another partnership that kind of got announced earlier on in the season, and there was a lot of excitement at the beginning of the season, was the partnership with Saskatoon Minor Hockey and the U15 League partnership. And I know we were following it along all year on social media when it came to the 8 teams that had the branded SJHL named after the SJHL teams. I mean, overall, it seemed like the first year that partnership was excellent.
Oh, it was really cool too, Jeremy. Like, at our showcase, a lot of those kids came and met with their SJHL brothers, if you will. And we had lots of photos with them, and the kids are really excited and were enthusiastic when the SJHL teams were playing. And of course, on Twitter, the parents and kids of those respective teams followed our SJHL teams. And again, in the final, the precursor to the SJHL final, there was a Bombers Stars final in the U15A in the city, which was kind of cool. And then we had some Twitter banter about that with Kelly Bowes, the president of Saskatoon Minor Hockey, and with some of the teams. And I tried not to offend some of our SJHL teams, but as fate would have it, it was the Stars and the Bombers. But it's been really good. And again, I said this previously, that a lot of kids think if they're not playing AAA or AA at 15 that their hockey dream is over, and certainly I don't believe so. Lots of kids are late bloomers, both physically and in terms of their athletic ability. And my goal or my hope is that at some point in the next couple of years that we have some kids who have graduated from that program playing for SJHL teams.
That is the ultimate goal for sure. And that actually leads well into the next kind of thing I want to talk to you about, and that's the Stay Here, Play Here campaign that was launched about a month and a half into the season. And I know one of the big things that you came out saying once you took on this position was you wanted to put the Saskatchewan back in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And I think the Stay Here, Play Here campaign is a big way of obviously doing that.
It is, and for sure, I can't take credit for that slogan. And it's quite a funny story how that came about, and I'll get to it. But certainly when I came in as commissioner, when I played in the league a number of years ago, we had a lot of Saskatchewan kids on the teams I played for. And of course, when you have lots of Saskatchewan kids, then you have lots of interest from people across Saskatchewan that are attending games.
100%.
You have more community engagement. You have more fans in your building. You have more sponsorship. So it's not it doesn't take a financial analyst to figure that out, Jeremy. Like, you have more local kids or more Saskatchewan kids in your rink, you're going to have more bums in the seats. You're going to have better engagement and outreach in the community, and you're going to have more people in your building. We have the very best 18U AAA league in Canada in our backyard. And so certainly when I came in, one of the things I wanted to be very intentional about was building a strong relationship with the 18U AAA League and building a stronger relationship with Hockey Saskatchewan. And so although it's not absolutely perfect yet, I think we're getting there. We're making lots of progress. I have to always remind our coaches, though, some of which are not from Saskatchewan, hey, you know what? You could have a Saskatchewan kid playing on a roster, or you could give this kid an opportunity. So I mean, I'm certainly always going to be that champion. That's what I'm about.
Right.
I believe that we need to have Saskatchewan partnerships with our sponsors. We need to have Saskatchewan kids playing in our league, and our coaches have to be more intentional about getting more Saskatchewan kids playing. Now, the Stay Here, Play Here. So this is how it kind of developed. It was kind of kind of a thing that kind of arose out of one of our meetings at IKS. And I don't know if I can give Clark Monroe or Paul Druin the credit for it, but
it's definitely not Clark.
But one of the things we had in our strategic plan in hockey operations was we wanted more Saskatchewan content. And I think I might have said in a rant, I just want more kids to stay here. And I think either Paul or Clark said, and play here. And then Paul said, stay here, play here. And it kind of stuck. And initially that was not kind of the hashtag or the moniker or the focus that we wanted to have with our hockey operations, but it really says it all, doesn't it?
It really does. And obviously I think the campaign's worked so far, and obviously it's the first year of it as well. But it leads well into the next point to tackle, and I know you're really excited about this, and it's the fact that, this year we've seen a significant amount of NCAA Division I commitments for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, which just bodes well for the future of this league.
Well, one of the things, Jeremy, when I took over, and one of the reasons why I engaged with you and with Paul and Clark at IKS is that we were not doing a very good job celebrating the talent levels that we had in the SJHL. We needed to do more to promote our teams, promote our league, and most importantly, promote our players. Mm-hmm. And so in addition to, the SJHL Weekly and the Insider and the podcasts and doing things with the hockey TV, which we needed to improve, we wanted to make sure that we were showcasing our Saskatchewan talent, right? And so again, through social media, through your outstanding program and outstanding work that you did, through our marketing, through brand awareness, through the social channels, those are all things that we try to do to promote the SJHL and promote our players. An unintended byproduct, but it might have been intended, was that this year we have 20 NCAA Division I rides, which is the highest number ever in about 13 years in the SJHL. We have 10 U Sport commitments already. Last year, I think we had 12. We have a number of NCAA Division III commitments, and we have a number of ACAC. And so ultimately our goal is that we are trying to develop young men. We're trying to make them better citizens. We're trying to prepare them for the transition to the world of life and to being a good community member and being a good parent and being a good spouse. And a byproduct of that is that some kids continue with both their academic and athletic endeavors through hockey and sport, right? So that is an unintended consequence. It's always something that leagues are assessed at or people value, but I think there's a combination of things this year: more exposure for the league, more scouts who are attending our events. We had a better hockey TV package, and certainly the outstanding work of Jeromy Corrigan to bring a lot of awareness to our players and Nugsy and Rory. And when we go to our events that the league has and you and I interact with some of the parents, they all like it that you guys are always repping and promoting their players and their sons, right? And that's a big part of it for sure.
And that's, to me, and I told you this earlier, for me, that's the best part of the job that makes it worth it, is getting that, feedback from, especially from the parents. But my follow-up question to that now is, obviously this was a banner year when it comes to NCAA Division I commitments for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. How do you build off that? How do you continue to see that number rise?
Well, I think for me, I'm a data guy. Okay. So I always want to have benchmarks. I want to use data as a way to assess our performance. And so when I came in last year, and certainly the fine work that Bill and the governors had done prior to me, they didn't have a benchmark for that data, but they did great work to promote the league. So I wanted to take it to a new level. And so again, I want to make the SJHL Canada's premier junior A hockey league. And that's our mission statement that we developed with the Board of Governors when I came in last June. And to be premier, you have to focus on excellence. You have to be consistent over time. You have to have a proven formula and methodology. And so hopefully those are some of the things that we've begun to put in place, to have the foundation in place, and hopefully we're building on it. And I know there's lots of chatter out there about different leagues, and if you don't stay in Saskatchewan, you're not going to get a full ride. Well, I'm here to say that this is the very best junior A hockey league in Canada. We play the most complete game. And so when you're recruiting a player out of the SJHL, you're getting a quality player that knows how to play in all areas of the game. And they're going to be a contributor to your college team, whether it's in Canada or whether it's in the U.S.
Do you think part of it is changing the narrative of the SJHL a little bit of how I think this league might sometimes be perceived as across the board? I think from my time working in Alberta and BC, sometimes people in those provinces might see the SJHL as being an older and a tougher, maybe slower league. But to me, coming back here after being away for 6 years or so, that's definitely not the case. Like it's very fast and very highly skilled.
I can't believe I hired you with those perceptions.
Oh, I didn't have those perceptions at all. I'm just saying that's what I heard from other people, and I had to fight against that.
So here's the thing, right? So sometimes as a league, you got to do a better job owning and putting out your own narrative. Right? So when you look at our league, the average age is only about 18.5. Would I like it to be younger? Absolutely. And look at the success we've had with the number of 2006 kids like Riley Ash or Karsten Keeter or some of those kids that got NCAA rides, right? Or even the Miller kid or Van Blaircom. And so we have younger kids that are 07s this year that have been watching the league, and they're seeing that these kids are having success. They're getting offers. That's going to attract more kids to our league. I said before that one of the things that really struck me about our league was the speed and the skill.
Exactly.
Because you know what? Like most of our teams are playing that skill, that speed game. And if you want to compete at the national level, which is the Centennial Cup or the World Junior A Challenge, you have to have skill and speed. You can't be playing the after the whistle 1985 style of hockey anymore, right? You can't do that.
Yeah.
And again, you might win our league playing like that, but you go to the Centennial Cup, you'll be absolutely embarrassed. So again, the two teams that were in our final, both Flin Flon and Battleford, and even Humboldt, those were all teams that were extremely fast and extremely skilled. And I knew that any one of those teams would be positive representatives for our league, and that's the way the league is going. And so you look at the teams that have had a lot of success, not only in our league, but in Manitoba and in Alberta, like the Brooks Bandits or Spruce Grove, they're fast and they're skilled. You look at the Steinbach Pistons in Manitoba, they're fast and they're skilled, right? If we want to be competitive at the Centennial Cup, and we want to recruit or attract U.S. colleges or even U Sport colleges, speed and skill. You watch U Sport, and U Sport is fast and it's physical, right? NCAA is a little more fast and skilled, not as physical, but that's the way hockey is going. You watch the playoffs now. The teams that are the most successful are fast and skilled. And so again, some people believe the paradigm or the mythology that we're old and slow. This league is anything but old and slow. It is fast and it's skilled and it's exciting to watch.
100%. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the state of the league. Obviously, a couple of years ago was very difficult through COVID-19 and everything, and businesses, across, Canada, the world, obviously had to go through a very difficult time. My question to you is, how is the current state of the SJHL now, about 2 years after COVID, and how the league's doing financially?
Yeah, so again, if you want to have a healthy hockey table, a healthy hockey league, you have to have a healthy business table. And of course, we have had many outstanding partnerships with our sponsors, and that has been absolutely incredible. And we have a business operations plan, Jeromy, because we can't operate this league without a plan, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we have to have targets, we have to have goals, we have to have a return on investment for our sponsors. And so all that stuff has been put into place, right? So we need to have a healthy financial table in order to have a healthy league for our teams, right? And so again, some of our teams are premier and are doing a great job, and they probably don't have to worry about finances as much as others. But our largest driver for our finances for our teams is marketing and sponsorship and fan attendance, right? And those things go hand in hand, and they're related to local content or outreach in the communities or community service or school visits or playing shinny or kids working with minor hockey, because everything is relational.
Right.
And the better job that you do marketing your team, doing outreach, having a great engaging fan experience in the arenas, all those things put bums in seats, and bums in seats and money at concessions and merchandise and sponsorship is going to drive the fiscal health of the franchises, right? So those who do a great job of their marketing and their outreach and their fan engagement are not struggling financially. Those that maybe their attendance is down or they don't pay as much attention to that stuff, they need a little bit of help.
How was attendance this year across the SJHL?
Well, regular season. So again, you're worried about COVID. So last year was really the first return from COVID to full play and full attendance. And even last year, there were some restrictions in terms of
at the beginning
how
of the
you
year,
could attend a game and what you had to wear or not wear. This year, there was no restrictions, and thank goodness, knock on wood, there was no pandemic at all. So our attendance was pretty good. It was about, on average, 690 fans during the regular season. And that's pretty good, knowing that we also have a couple markets probably 3 markets, where their attendance is under 400 fans a game. So generally, most of our teams, in terms of our attendance, the attendance was up and it was strong. It was positive. So lots of positive gains in a lot of buildings. Like Battlefords had excellent attendance. Melfort had excellent attendance. Kindersley's attendance was up, and part of that is about their in-game experience, right? Which is incredible. It's one of the funnest atmospheres we have. Flin Flon is always high. Humboldt is always high, right? So some of those teams, traditionally, their attendance was great. Melville, their attendance was up, even though their record on the ice near the second half of the year went down. So we had lots of positive gains during the regular season. Playoffs, our average attendance was probably about 1,100. And again, we probably had 3 teams whose attendance in playoffs averaged under 500. So, I mean, that certainly brings down the upper part. But the other night in Flin Flon, we had 1,800 people in Flin Flon on the Friday. We probably had 1,600 on Saturday. In Battlefords the previous weeks, I bet we had 21 to 2,300. If the fire marshal is not listening, maybe 2,400. So the attendance in the final, like we averaged 2,000 fans a game, which is absolutely incredible. That's awesome, right? Because again, if we have league sponsors and partners, and we have their ice logos, we have their rink boards, we mention them on our telecasts, or we mention them on our hockey TV, that brings them a positive return on investment. So everything works together, right? So bums in seats, people watching the game. Hockey TV, playoffs, we average 250 people a game.
Wow.
I haven't seen the SaskTel metrics yet, but I would imagine that probably our final series, which unfortunately for us, but fortunately for Battleford, only went 4 games. I'm guessing we probably have 20,000 people watching those games. So we'll see where that is. But again, quality product on the ice leads to fan engagement, leads to sponsorship, leads to bum and seats, leads to a great in-game experience. It all works together.
And one of the biggest events for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League each and every year is the SJHL Showcase. It was a great event this year. Saw a great amount of scouts coming to it, to Warman once again. My question to you is for next year, how do you see the showcase growing, and could we see some potential changes to it?
Yeah, we'll see it growing and changing. So, I mean, again, this year was my first year doing it.
Of course, yeah.
And so I was, although I tried to plan as much as I could, at times I felt like I was flying by the seat of my pants. And it probably came off a lot more successful than I envisioned, which was awesome. But as you go through things, whenever you are in a leadership succession, it's a good idea sometimes to figure out how things work before you kind of blow things up and make some changes. And so I wanted to see how the showcase worked, and I saw the talent level was great. I saw that our fan engagement in Warman was great. The broadcasts were outstanding with SaskTel and Bamboo Shoots and some of our league personalities that were doing it. Lots of interest from parents and from scouts, very well attended, but the timing was not very good. So the timing is in early September. Most of our rosters probably changed 20 to 30% from September to the end of March, right? So again, for me, I wondered about the timing going into it. So I was evaluating, was it successful in its present format? Pretty good. Was it doing what we intended it to do? Not sure, right? So when I went to the MJSJ showcase in January, I had the opportunity to rub some shoulders with some of the scouts that I had met at our own showcase. So I started asking them the question.
Sure.
And the NCAA guys in particular said, well, you know what? You need to have it later. I said, oh, like December? No, like sometime in November. I said, okay. And would it be cool if you guys went back and started to engage your 18U league again? because they used to do that about 12 or 13 years ago.
Okay.
And so I think they had a 18U or a Saskatchewan AAA midget all-star game in the midst of our showcase. And I personally think we should have regular season games, because a lot of the NCAA schools now are watching these kids when they're younger and younger, right? And the thing for me that I think that our league and even the Western Hockey League has to do a better job of, and I don't care whether kids go the Western League route or the SJHL, because both are great leagues and both have benefits, and sometimes you can do both as being developmental. I just want families to get the right information so they can make informed choices about what is best for their child, right? And so that's my goal. So I would like to, I'm trying to engage the 18U AAA League right now. I'm trying to do a combined showcase with 18U AAA and the SJHL, and maybe changing our format a little bit, to not have 2 games, to have 1 game, but to have everyone in a centralized position where you're going to have scouts from the Western Hockey League, you're going to have scouts from U Sport, from ACAC, from NCAA, and they're watching kids. But we also have a responsibility to create some awareness seminars where we're talking to people about appropriate online behavior, or talking to them about what maltreatment is and how to avoid it. Talking to them about the pros and cons, maybe with some former players, talking about what program is best for what kid. So some of that stuff. So that would be my vision for it. Is it going to happen next year, Jeremy? I hope like heck it is. But I mean, I got to be able to engage that 18U league as well.
Right, of course.
And I guess, I would say that some teams I've talked to are all in. That's a great idea, Kyle. And then some are maybe a little bit skeptical about what my motivation is. And again, my ultimate goal here is stay here, play here.
Right.
But the secondary goal would be, I want people to have the right information, so they're making informed decisions about what is the best hockey option for their children.
And another, factor with stay here, play here is the SJHL draft. It's coming up in June 1st, coming up in about a month. I mean, that was one of the first things you got to do last year when you were on the job, is the SJHL draft. I mean, what do you make of it, and your thoughts on it and the success of it? Because we saw players from last year's draft make an immediate impact.
Well, that was a baptism by fire, Jeremy, because I was juggling lots of balls the day of the draft, and Daniela and Nugsy certainly made it easy for me, and the coaches were very good and very tolerant and forgiving.
Right.
But certainly some of the kids that were drafted, I had a level of understanding and comfort and familiarity with, because my son had played in that group, and so we played against a lot of those kids. And then to see a lot of those kids playing in our league this year was so rewarding. It was so outstanding, right? And so again, I really didn't understand why we had a draft, but I know that the job that IKS did and the SJHL did last year, we had a lot of parent and kid engagement with that draft.
Right.
And it was super successful, even though behind the scenes we were scrambling to get Connor Tate information and information from the coaches. And sometimes the coaches weren't giving me the correct spelling, and that I'm trying to give it to Connor. And
that's the magic of television.
Oh man, I'll tell you. So this year, having gone through it, we're going to be a lot more prepared and a lot more professional. I think that the 07 draft class is still a pretty strong class. For us, the SJHL draft, if you're in a program that is premier or marquee and you have lots of resources, you don't rely as heavily on the draft as a team maybe that might be in a community that's smaller size, or a team that really doesn't have the best record in the league and stuff. So that draft is important because it gives the teams an opportunity to engage the families, engage the kids, and get them to come to their team and community. But our teams still have to do a good job building the relationship with the families and with the players, and convincing them that, hey, this is a great place to play. Your child is going to be well looked after. They're going to have development on and off the ice. They're going to have a strong billet program. They're going to have a strong educational component to the program. So those are all things that teams have to make sure they have in place, because parents want to know that stuff, especially moms, before they send their boys off, right? So we got to make sure that we do a good job as a league, giving parents the right information. Our team's got to make sure that they have quality programs. And then when you draft those kids, you got to make sure if you draft them, you give them an opportunity to play. And so we're going to certainly do some things here in the off season around that to make that experience and make that transition a little more positive, a little smoother. But I think the draft is really, it's an exciting thing for the kids and for the parents. Probably more exciting than it is for the guys who scout and watch hockey all the time. But for me, it's an important introduction for teams to build a relationship with our players.
100%. I want to hit on a couple of hot topics from not just in Saskatchewan, but around junior hockey in Canada before we wrap things up.
And I don't know if I want to answer.
I know. So we'll find out. To be determined.
Okay, fire away.
But the first one that came up November, December, and that was the CJHL announcement with potential playing with full cages. I want to ask you about that. Obviously, it blew up on social media about it potentially being implemented this year. I guess, what's the update on it, and could we see that being implemented next year, or what's the situation going on with that?
Okay, well, again, probably this year, I would say in the past, just to give a little bit of background,
right?
The CJHL and Hockey Canada probably did not have have a real two-way communication and a really strong relationship.
Okay.
So there was a memorandum of agreement that was signed between the CJHL and Hockey Canada that basically said that before any rule change would be implemented, there would be lots of consultation, lots of discussion,
right,
and you would use data to make a decision, right? And so the way that things transpired this year, it looked like at times we were going to have a mid-year implementation of the full face mask for the entire league. And for me, as the new commissioner, and knowing what our team's budgets are for equipment, I was concerned that if you brought in a full implementation without consulting teams or leagues, that it was going to place a financial burden on teams, right? So again, there's that whole financial piece that you're worried about. The other thing that concerned me was the procedure, right? So before you make any kind of change, why don't you consult leagues? But more importantly, why don't we consult the kids, right? Because they're the ones that are playing. They're the ones that are assuming risk. And so I took it upon myself. We did a bit of a survey of our parents. So we surveyed all 276 kids in the league, and we asked them some different questions about facial protection and risk management, and whether they would prefer to wear a half visor, even if it meant that their families had to buy some additional insurance for dental, obviously.
Right.
And I think out of 276 respondents, 91% said yes.
Wow.
So I took that data and I gave it to our branch, and our branch was also in agreement with it. And they went back to Hockey Canada, and there's all kinds of debate, a lot of which I will not share in this forum because I probably shouldn't. But it kind of got to the point where they decided that, hey, you know what, we're gonna stave off. We're going to delay the implementation, and we're going to have discussions. So now that Hockey Canada has a new senior leadership table, we have a new CJHL commissioner in Andy Harkness. And so I know that Andy has been working very hard with the senior leadership team at Hockey Canada. We have a designated liaison from Hockey Canada that works with the CJHL now. And so a few months back, we signed a memorandum of agreement, which would be a graduated implementation, a full face mask into the league. And again, any player in our league has a choice to wear a full face mask. My concern is that if we move completely to full face masks and we're not committed to tracking data. So, for example, if we implemented a full face mask and the number of head contact penalties or the number of concussions went up, I think that would be irresponsible of the CJHL and Hockey Canada and the SJHL not to use that data to make a better decision. So I hope that somewhere someone is listening to me and saying, okay, Commissioner Kyle says we need to keep track of data, and we need to use that data to make an informed decision about these face masks. So the way it looks next year, at one time I thought any player in our league would be grandfathered this year. That's not the case. So we are going to have a full face mask implementation for 2005, 2006, and 2007 players beginning throughout the CJHL in the fall. And so every single league in the CJHL is either moving to a full implementation or to a graduated implementation. And what we're doing is a graduated implementation. And I hope along the way we look at the data and we decide, was this a good decision or was it not? The other thing, if I put on my parents' hat, and if my own child, like I always think about what would I want for my own child, right? So would I want to be looking at a $20,000 dental bill if my son took a deflection or a high stick in the chops? Probably not, Jeremy, right? And although we have some dental insurance as a league for all our players, which is good, which is awesome, and I would have some individual insurance as a parent,
Right.
it does not cover it entirely, right? So those are decisions that families have to make. Whatever decision family makes, fine with me, but we have to worry about that risk, right? From the outside, people say, oh, we shouldn't have face. Okay, but if you had a child that had a dental injury, your opinion might be a lot different than sitting in a chair and not having any skin in the game.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, it's a delicate situation that'll have to be sorted out, obviously, throughout the off season, and like you said, something that has to be monitored throughout, the next year, 2 years when it comes to data. Now, the other hot topic that has recently come out on social media, and we'll see if you want to comment on it, but there are rumblings about the potential of the BCHL leaving Hockey Canada and how that might affect other junior A hockey leagues. If that does come into fruition, how might that affect the SJHL?
See you later. Have fun, is my thought. Honestly, Jeremy, I have varying opinions about this.
Okay.
This is not an official league opinion. This is Kyle. If I take off my commissioner hat,
yeah.
This would be my opinion. Again, my thought is that if a team has a quality program and you have a positive team culture on that team, and you're developing the whole child on and off the ice, teams in our league will not lose players to the BCHL. So there are those that think that we're going to lose all kinds of kids out of the province. And if they do what they intend on doing, Jeremy, it will be an international hockey league. It'll be an outlaw international league. There'll be kids. There's a lot of kids in the U.S. already in BC, but there'll be kids from Europe and abroad. And so if I were to look at the talent pools in Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and I think about where some of our players might fit on the international stage, and I would say that we're not going to have a mass exodus from the prairie provinces to the BC Junior Hockey League, because there's also going to be some other sanctions that are going to come out from Hockey Canada. So, and a lot of it basically is anyone that would play in the BC Junior Hockey League, it's not affiliated with Hockey Canada.
Right.
So you're going to lose access to all the programs of excellence that Hockey Canada puts on. So the World Junior A Challenge is out the window. You're no longer eligible. You're no longer eligible for the Centennial Cup. You're no longer eligible to move between teams after September 30th. So if a kid goes out from Saskatchewan, goes out to a BC team like a Merritt or whatnot, a Cowichan, and they get out there and they start the year and they're third and fourth line, and next thing you know, they're eating popcorn in the stands, which they probably will be, and they try to come back to any other team that's registered with Hockey Canada, they are ineligible for that season.
Right.
And I know there are people in the CJHL, and we'll discuss this at the Centennial Cup, that would like to see the 16 and 17-year-olds that do this be banned from Hockey Canada events for life. And so that's fairly extreme, and I don't think that will happen. But I also don't think that individual branches are going to release the 16 or 17-year-old player. The other thing that is a byproduct, unfortunately, of them breaking away from the CJHL is that they're not going to have insurance that you have through Hockey Canada now. And it is significant. I mean, insurance is important. And you're also not going to have certified officials, because any official that works in that BC Junior Hockey League, again, is going to be ineligible for any Hockey Canada sanctioned league or opportunity. So there's going to be some deterrence that we haven't talked about publicly very much, and I certainly wouldn't engage about that stuff on social media. So if people are throwing the bait out for the commissioner, he's not taking it. But there are going to be some deterrents for both players and officials. And honestly, you know, if they want to go do that, have at her. I'm worrying about our own house here. I want to make the SJHL Canada's premier junior A hockey league. I think we're on the right track. We had lots of success this year. And again, as Telemiracle, as they say in Telemiracle in Saskatchewan, Jeremy, where are we going? We're going higher. We're going to get better. I'm not going to stop improving as long as I'm commissioner here.
Well, and I think in the grand scheme of things, I will also say, I just think that the fans will appreciate the transparency, especially with those last two questions and getting your thoughts on those two issues. Because, yeah, like I said, both of them have been on social media quite a bit over the course of this season. But just a few more questions for you before we wrap things up. Of course, we really appreciate your time as always, Kyle. But you touched on Centennial Cup. Just around the corner here, the Battlefords North Stars going to be representing the SJHL. Before we talk about how you think Battlefords will do, what do you think of this, of the new format? Obviously, it was implemented last year in Estevan, but what do you think of it?
Well, there's pros and cons, right? And so if you're a organizing committee with 10 teams,
it's a lot.
Accommodation becomes a bit of an issue or a challenge, right? That's a challenge. You got to have multiple ice surfaces in your community, which will eliminate a lot of communities in both Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. So it becomes a bit of a challenge. And then as a host committee, you're trying to get an opportunity because you want your local team in.
Right.
But you also want to have some legacy funds from operating a successful event.
Right.
So your profit are probably cut about in half, right? So on that financial side, an organizing committee is putting out a lot of resources with probably not the same return that they would have in the past. The positive thing about it is you have teams and leagues that would never ever qualify for a Centennial Cup championship now have the opportunity to play in that championship. And even if my league, if I'm in the SIJHL and I'm not as competitive as the other leagues, at least I can see where the benchmark is, and I can go back to my league and maybe improve my program and the overall quality of my league by knowing what it takes to be competitive at the next event. So it's exciting that way. It makes a long,
Jeremy, a long tournament.
Jeremy, you're going to see it's a very long tournament.
Yeah.
And you are going to have hockey fatigue. That's one of the things last year when I was able to fortunately shadow Bill and we went to the event. I love hockey. I was tired every day. When I came home after the Centennial Cup, I crashed for about 3 days because you have hockey fatigue.
Sure.
Because you're having meetings.
That's 11 days, yeah.
3 games a day for 11 days. And you're with some of the same guys and gals, kibitzing and getting around. Got to the point where I started to move around and talk to fans because my ADHD was not lending itself very well for sitting in the booth with the other commissioners. But it's a long event. And again, it's pool play, right? So being placed in the wrong pool can make that a not very nice event for a team or for a league, right? And again, for me, it's great winning your league, and some teams are happy winning your league. But if you're going to an event like that, you want to compete. And I mean, last year we were pretty fortunate. Like Flin Flon had an outstanding tournament. I was picking them to win it last year, and they kind of got a bit of a call that kind of ended in the semifinal that kind of went against them. But then Estevan, who was hosting, who was our league championship, there was all kinds of pressure on that staff and those kids hosting that event, right? So again, there's a lot of expectations on the teams that go to that event. And if you get off to a great start, that's awesome. But if you don't get off to a great start, it's not so awesome.
Sure.
So do I want to make a prognostication about Battleford? Yes and no. I don't want to put undue pressure on North Battleford. I really don't.
Sure.
But North Battleford might be the very best SJHL team we have seen since about 2008 when Braden Klamosko played on the Humboldt Broncos. I mean, Laurent had a couple pretty good teams in there as well.
Well, what about the Yorkton team that won the
they were good too, and they had a lot of local Saskatchewan kids on that team, but it was a different format, right?
Yes, 100%.
So there wasn't 10 teams.
Yeah, it was only 5.
So it wasn't as competitive, right? And again, they had a great event, and that was exciting watching those guys. But yeah, so it'll be good. But I've said this from the entire year this year. To compete, you have to have speed and skill. And you got to be able to transition incredibly quickly. And again, probably the 2 best teams that I've seen in the last 2 years at playing with speed and skill and transition are the Brooks Bandits and the Battleford North Stars.
There you go. So we'll see how the Battlefords North Stars do. They begin their tournament at the Centennial Cup May 11th against the champion of the SIJHL. They're also in a group with the champion of the Ontario Junior Hockey League. And I think it's pretty cool to also see them being in the same group as both MJHL teams, which I think those two games are going to be outstanding. And it's going to be a great event in Portage. Final question for you, Kyle. Obviously, let's put a bow on the 2022-2023 season. Your final thoughts, and I guess your thoughts on where you've seen this league grow this year and where you see the future of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League.
Well, my thoughts are there's lots of great people in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, both players, coaches, media personality, board members, volunteers. There's a lot of passion for junior hockey in Saskatchewan, which I knew there was.
Right.
And so for me, that was very reinforcing. It was very assuring. We had an outstanding year, both on the ice and off the ice, and we're moving in the right direction. But there's lots more to do, right? Because again, my ultimate goal is to make this Canada's premier junior A league, as people are probably sick of me saying, but that's the plan. That's the vision.
Right. Yeah.
And again, I think that our league is one of the best kept secrets in Canada. And really what IKS and what you have done this year, Jeromy, and Nugsy and Rory and Jacob, is we have started to market our league to show people the great things that are happening in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League and a high caliber of play. And as we have more awareness around our brand, I think that's going to get better and better and better, and it's going to be stronger. And our clubs, our governors are going to understand what it's going to take to compete at a premier level. And so certainly that's going to be some of the work plan as well. And again, every team in our league, we are only as strong as our weakest link. And so I do not want to bring down or diminish the high quality that we have with some of our franchises right now. I want to raise every single franchise up. So we will be doing some work with the governors this year at our AGM in June at Jackfish, and we'll be working on a couple little projects that we'll be implementing in the fall that will be designed to improve our player experience and to raise the overall operation of every single franchise in our league.
Well, Kyle, it's an exciting time in the SJHL. First full year for a lot of us involved with the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. A lot of positives, but like you said, the work is just getting started. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
And could I just end by acknowledging you, Jeromy?
Oh, no, please don't.
Jeromy, you have been an outstanding ambassador for the SJHL. And you know what? It takes a strong team to move a team in the right direction towards the goalpost. And certainly you have been one of our MVPs this year. So well done, and thank you, sir. And keep up the great work. It's been a pleasure working with you and with Clark and with Jordan, with Paul at IKS and with Jacob. It's been outstanding, and more things to come, more great things to come.
Yeah, lots of ideas in the hopper, ready for the off season, but we got to get our rest before the Centennial Cup.
There we go.
Because we got 11 days of hockey. It's SJHL Commissioner Kyle McIntyre, and of course, the Battlefords North Stars, representing the SJHL, will be at the Centennial Cup beginning on May 11th with their first game. First game of the tournament is the first game of the tournament, 11:30 Manitoba time, 10:30 in Saskatchewan against the SIJHL champions.